If you feel you have what it takes to be awarded as the best in the business, here is your chance to apply. Head on over to our website, download the form, and apply. If you face any troubles when applying or feel the need to get in touch with us directly, email us, call us, tweet at me directly at Sunanda_J or join our Facebook group. Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, ET Now special initiative that celebrates the undying entrepreneurial spirit of micro, small and medium enterprises. This is the only daily MSME platform in the country, a show where you can voice your concerns and get answers directly from our team of experts. We understand the concerns that you, the MSME entrepreneur, face, and this is our attempt to give you the most relevant and updated information on all of the queries that you have regarding your business. Thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, ma'am. Let's start this conversation by asking you what, in your opinion, is really the opportunity for collaboration between large and small players?
I think it's a no-brainer. Frankly, both of them need the other, in the sense that if I'm a small scale player, I need a distribution outlet to sell my products. So, pervasive distribution is very critical, of course, depending on the kind of product that you're selling. And therefore, unless retailers and manufacturers collaborate, it's never going to work. So the retailers need the manufacturers for their margins. The manufacturers need the retailers to get their products to consumers. So I think the more they collaborate, the better it will be for the entire ecosystem.
We started this interview by talking about how MSMEs can possibly collaborate with larger peers. Let's also talk about competition. How does an MSME really take on increasing competition, especially from larger peers?
So we are talking about, when we talk about larger players, these are players that have a larger footprint. These are probably players that have more years of experience. In some instances, these are probably players who are, the Indian companies of multinationals that have operated in that segment in many, many countries around the world. So, what we are calling the smaller players or the new entrant into the market has to really be the challenger. You can't, either you take the big player at the big player's game and say, I'm going to deliver the same for less. Which is quite a worthwhile strategy to pursue in some cases. Or the other thing is, because the large players are large, they have to, at some stage, they cannot be, they're more sort of general and more generic, whereas a smaller player has the ability to be far more focused. That is another area. The third thing is, again, the large player by definition is appealing to a very large market, and therefore some of the offerings are quite homogeneous. A smaller player can actually create very distinct and distinctive segments to market to, and therefore the small player strategy cannot be that, I'm going to just go in there and compete with the big players. The small player strategy either has to be, I give you the same for less, or I give you same for same, or I give you more for less.
I want to also talk about how the domestic landscape has changed, especially given that a lot of global companies are now understanding the kind of potential, the kind of opportunities which are available in India across industries, and therefore what the changed response should be of MSMEs when they take on this increasing competition.
We keep talking about a changing landscape, but actually the facts are that it hasn't changed that much. If you look at the large global players that have been in the market in India, they've been around for the last several decades. There are companies like Hindustan Unilever and Nestle that have been in India almost 100 years or 100 years plus in the case of HUL. So there are large multinationals that have always been in India. It's not as though we've had a flood of multinationals coming into the market and, oh my God, everything is changing. That's not the case, actually. In fact, the case is that there are many more Indian brands made by Indian manufacturers without any collaborations that are actually extending and expanding their footprint. So I think to say that all the multinationals have queued up in the FMCG space to come to India, that's not true. In fact, there are there are very few. You take the large dairy sector. The dominant players are all players from India. There is no large dairy company that has come into India, and dairy is a very, very large and a very, very significant market. So I think we have to first of all get the facts right. The second thing is that there will be multinationals who are attracted to India primarily for two or three reasons. One is the size of this market you will not get in any other country. The heterogeneity of this market is fantastic. We've got fairly well established, distribution systems and so on and so forth. And this is a country which is going to, I believe, show one of the highest growth rates amongst developed countries. So that makes India a very attractive market, both in terms of size, scale, potential, opportunity. So there will be more and more players coming into India. I think the MSMEs have a real advantage. They can actually be far more strategic and far more focused. They don't have to cover the entire market. I would, if I were an MSME player, think about establishing my strength in a particular region, and then think of expanding rather than think of an all India footprint to begin with.
So given how the nature of the industry has changed, do you think consolidation is going to be something that the industry will have to come to terms with? Do you expect there will be more consolidation in the FMCG or retail space?
Why should consolidation actually be a concern? I think we have to get away from some of these thoughts that, oh my God, consolidation is a concern. Consolidation is actually good, because what it tells me is that I have created something that is seen to be of value to somebody else who can either buy me or merge with me or collaborate with me to create something even bigger. So I think consolidation is actually a good thing. If there are people who are interested in my business because they want to acquire it or merge with it or invest money to grow it, it's actually a good thing. So we should move away from this thinking that, oh my God, consolidation is happening and therefore what will happen. Now, it is true that in most markets, you look at most markets around the world and across categories, then usually it's a big generalization. Usually the top 3 to 5 players would be the ones that actually have 70 to 80% of the market. And then there is a long tail of smaller niche players, which in a country like India, I would say that, the larger players probably have a national footprint, and the smaller players are the ones who are more strong regionally, but may or may not have a national footprint. Now, again, it also depends on what your objective as an MSME is. If everybody wants to end up being a $5 billion company, then yes, there's going to be a lot of competition and, the best athletes will win.
Ma'am, do hold that thought. Let's take a very quick break, but don't go anywhere. Much more on the other side. You, of course, are someone who is very closely associated with Britannia over several years. What are some of the best practices, in your opinion, that MSMEs can possibly learn from your experience?
I think there's a lot to learn. Again, this is a huge generalization because we're talking about many different kinds of products. But, suffice to say, when we're looking at FMCG, by definition, a lot of the FMCG products are what I would call low price point and high velocity items. You look at things like household consumption stuff and so on, apart from some of the personal products that are fairly high up in the price chain. So I think what is important and critical is, depending on the market you're catering to, and let's for a minute assume that this is a mass marketed product which is relevant for the needs of most consumers. So it could be a lot of food products fall into that category, a lot of household cleaning products fall into that category, and so on. So those, by definition, you have to have some sort of a pervasive distribution and availability. It has to be available, to my convenience as a consumer. To ensure high velocity, you have to make sure that you've got a value chain that is capable of replenishment on an ongoing basis. I can't have a great product which people love, but half the time I go to the shop and it's not available because my supply chain has not been able to supply it. So I think the very, very basic tenets of availability, accessibility, affordability for the target that you are aiming at, and then the right kind of communication. I think the most important thing is what is going to be the product experience. I would like the MSMEs to think of one other thing, which is that most people can sell a product at least once. Okay, but it requires some deep thinking and some creating of a business model to ensure that there is repeat purchase.
I want to talk about technology, and technology from the point of view of how businesses have changed with regards to the use of technology. Your advice on how MSMEs can harness technology much better within their companies?
I think online is here to stay, so I don't want to dismiss online. The fact is that the large population of India, for a long time to come, is still going to be served by the 6 or 7 million kirana stores, whose livelihood depends on being in the retail business. So online is here, it will grow, but right now, am I going to be threatened by online? I don't think so. It's something that we have to, it's another channel of distribution. So, as an FMCG player, when the big supermarkets came, it was like, oh my God, the organized retail is coming, and what's going to happen to the small retailer? Well, nothing has happened to the small retailer. A lot of the organized players have not actually made a success of what they wanted to do. So we have to look at the larger ecosystem of our country. And I do believe the fact is that for the next several years, it's going to be a coexistence of people buying online as well as the market of India being served by the millions of small, kirana shops and other retailers.
The reason I'm talking about technology is to also understand from you something that a lot of our MSMEs tell us. They say we don't have the funds when it comes to be able to use more technology in our businesses. Like you were saying, using technology is a no-brainer, but what is a company which understands the requisites of using technology but doesn't have the funds to do so? What then is the way forward for them?
So I think MSMEs also have to be very clear, which is that what are the channels of distribution which are best suited to the product I have? And in this case, it is not one size fits all. Today we can really target our offering, whether it be the Raj organized trade, whether it be the kirana shops, whether it be online. And I, as the MSME, don't have to invest in every channel, because the fact is that somebody has invested in those channels and those channels exist. Sometimes I feel that, perhaps if I'm a first generation entrepreneur, I kind of get overwhelmed by everything, by all the noise that is surrounding me on online, on e-commerce, and so on and so forth. At some stage, you have to cut through the noise. You have to think about what you're doing very clearly and very distinctly. And the definition of success is also not the same for everybody. The definition of success also varies by, who you are, what you want to do, how large a business you want to create, and so on. There are very, very successful entrepreneurs who are doing stuff very locally and very regionally.
Omnichannels really seems to be the buzzword, ma'am, whether it is the FMCG or the retail space. Your take on that?
Again, I think all of these things are there and they are relevant. But are they equally relevant for everybody? The answer is no. So again, I come back to the drawing board, which is you have to first start with what is the customer need that my product or my offering is going to fill. The second thing is, what are the best places for the customer to interact with the product that or service or experience that I want to sell them. The third is, what are the possible channels to reach the customer. And the fourth then is, what is the importance of each of those channels, and where are my interests best suited in terms of the market that I want to cater to.
I want to talk about hiring of people, which is something that's very closely associated with the nature of the FMCG and the retail business. A survey that came out a few years ago by NASSCOM said that only 20 to 25% of all graduates coming out of colleges are really employable by the industry. The government on its part, of course, is trying to push Skill India, increase the availability of employable talent to India Inc. Do you think enough is being done? What is your advice in terms of being able to manage this shortfall then?
Right now, what I see is a big mismatch between what India needs to keep its pace of 7.5 to 8.5% growth and the skills and talent available in India. And I think a lot of companies are also taking a rather myopic view of it. It's not about getting somebody from my competitor or from another industry and paying them more, because unless we are actually able to increase the talent pool of the right kind of, plumbers, carpenters, MBAs, engineers, doctors, dentists, what have you, we're never going to be able to meet the needs and requirements of an India which has the ambition and the desire to grow at 7.5 to 8.5%. So I do believe that even now we are underemphasizing hugely the importance of skilling, training on an ongoing and continuous basis. It is not about having degrees. It's not everybody doesn't need to have, MBAs or engineering degrees, etc. But you've got to have the right kind of knowledge and skills for the jobs that are opening up. And today, the kind of jobs that are opening up are huge. We're talking about MSMEs and we're talking about the FMCG sector. I think there's a huge sector there which is about services.
Let's talk about finding mentors, something which is very critical no matter what industry, what business or what level of your career you're at. Your advice in terms of finding a mentor?
It's not about having a mentor. I think you have to have multiple sources, if you like, of learning, of experiencing. And so one mentor is, you could have one mentor for something. It's like, if I were to use an analogy and say that if I'm a cricket team, I have a bowling coach and I have a batting coach and I have a fielding coach, and all those skill sets are very different, and at different times I require a multiplicity of heterogeneous skill sets. So we also have to be smart about where that coaching or that mentorship is going to come from. If we are talking about having someone who's sort of a go-to person, who has the experience and the maturity to say that, in a situation like this is what I would do, those are always very, very useful.
As we're winding down this conversation, I want to talk to you about what perhaps has been one piece of conversation that you've received in your professional life that has really changed things for you, and therefore what would be if you had to give one piece of advice for our viewers?
So the one piece of advice I would give to anybody, not just an entrepreneur or, this is an advice for professionals, for entrepreneurs. Actually, two pieces of advice, I would say. One is that, work is only one of the things that we do in our life. It is not our life. So, add many more dimensions to your life than just work.
GST is just around the corner. Your advice for our viewers about how to go about ensuring that they're prepared for it?
Oh, GST is something that the industry has been waiting for a long time. It is the right thing to happen. I think in many ways it levels the playing field. Over the next few months, I think it will become a lot clearer how GST is actually going to be implemented, and what are the capacities and capabilities that manufacturers or companies will have to build and so on. I think in the case of products, it's going to be much easier than in the case of services. So I would say that you've got to prepare for that eventuality like you would prepare for anything else. Obviously the discussions with the government are happening. The implementation plan will be clearer, as the months go by. And it is just one of the things that you do what you have to do.
You're very closely associated with the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. Do you see enough understanding of healthy lifestyles and healthy living and healthy eating amongst India Inc.? And what advice would you have for our entrepreneurs about why it's essential to have such a healthy lifestyle?
India loses anywhere between 2 to 3% of its GDP on account of lower productivity, which is only the symptomatic reason. The underlying cause for that lower productivity is actually poor nutrition. So I don't believe, we have enough awareness of the importance of nutrition. Secondly, we need to look at nutrition not just as a luxury, but as a necessity. It is part of our constitution. The right to food and the right to nutrition is in Article 37 of our constitution. But a lot of us don't really understand it. And I think there are many things. For example, we are talking about MSMEs. Those of your viewers who are interested in, let's say, the food sector, there is work that we are doing right now on looking at large-scale fortification with minerals and vitamins, which is an empirically proven, tested methodology around the world, where over a period of time with sustained consumption of those products, you're actually improving and increasing the nutritional status of the population. You take, in India, the best example I can think of is iodized salt. As a result of that very basic intervention, which is you add iodine and salt, we have done away with diseases like goiter. And large-scale food fortification is simple because it doesn't change the eating habits of anybody. I'm still using salt the way I used to use. So there is work that we are doing on looking at fortification of oil, fortification of dairy, fortification of flour. And those of the MSMEs who are interested in looking at food or snacks and investing them, or putting more nutrition and health into it, have great opportunities to look at a variety of ingredients, to look at micronutrient fortification as part of the formula in the product. And that in and of itself will do a great service in terms of improving the health and nutritional standard. Of course, it is only one of several interventions, because nutrition is impacted by the quality of water I drink, the quality of food I eat, my access to primary health care, the hygiene and sanitized conditions in which I live. But all of these we have to work towards creating an ecosystem.
Ma'am, thank you very much for speaking with us here on the Leaders of Tomorrow. Completely out of time on this episode of the Leaders of Tomorrow. We've been in conversation with Vinita Bali to get you the most relevant and updated information from the FMCG and retail space. If you have any queries, do remember you can reach us directly. Email us at leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com. You can tweet at me personally. My handle is Sunanda_J. You can reach us on Twitter using the hashtag LOT. You can reach us on Facebook. You can even call us on that number you see on your screens, and we promise to have all of your queries answered. Thanks for watching. Have a good night. If you feel you have what it takes to be awarded as the best in the business, here is your chance to apply. Head on over to our website, download the form and apply. If you face any troubles when applying or feel the need to get in touch with us directly, email us, call us, tweet at me directly at Sunanda_J, or join our Facebook group.